Welcome, YouTube. It is Super Force Sunday.
Dude, I think you're gonna sell a lot of those. Okay, never mind.
Right?
I would buy 3. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I told you I'd send you one for free.
No, don't. I don't want you to do that. That's it costs you money, bro.
Yeah, yes,
I regard you guys like my own freaking family.
Maybe.
You guys are like my family. And anyway, trust me, I'd come on APAC if I could, but I was anyway.
Yeah, didn't you get?
Come on, go ahead.
So you had any problems coming on my show? Did anyone give you crap about that?
Dude, I had emails. Dude, I hunted this guy down. I forget what's called, Jared something. No, not Jared. Something something media, some sort of media. It went back to Wikipedia.
Yeah, they went editing.
And you know in whose pocket Wikipedia is. Dude, it's heavy. And they really hate us. Yeah. All of us that have different ideas, because we're changing the narrative and they hate us for it. Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's like all the old timers hated Max Planck. Didn't he say science progresses one funeral at a time?
That's right, my brother. That's right. It's like, yeah, I shouldn't wish death upon anybody, but you know what I mean?
But hey, it's Veterans Day yesterday, right? So we have a veteran here. Jared Yates is also.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for being here to join us. Don't you have a disclaimer to make about the affiliation with your former employer?
Oh yes, sir. Thank you for this. May I call you brother? I'll call you brother.
Yeah. From this point forward, we're going to call each other brother during the rest of the podcast.
Okay, no more. Yeah,
with Ashton, and he kind of just proceeded to call you sir for the rest of. But that's not going to happen here.
No, man. I hate when they call me Doctor Pais.
My channel.
It makes me so old. Like, where? Where's my father? No, I'm kidding. Anyway, dude. Yeah. Let me give the disclaimer. Okay. So, are you recording?
Yes, brother. We are live now.
All right.
We're live now, man.
All right, let me see how I phrase this. Okay, I come on your, thank you, Jeremy, for having me on your podcast, Alien Scientist, brother. All right, I come on your podcast as a private citizen, and my opinions, my speculations, my statements are my own. They have no implication upon the United States Navy or the United States Space Force. And as such, we shall, and also, I hope that I can retain the prerogative to not answer certain questions, or not in a dismissive manner, but politely say that I'm given this particular medium. I would rather put it this way: I'm not here to educate or enlighten our enemies. Period. Thank you.
And I bet you we have some of our enemies watching, no doubt.
Oh, you can bet your booty, baby. Let me read that thing from Kirsten Juan, because it was, unless you have, you want to introduce something or something like that, because I don't want to put a disturbance in your flow, if you know what I mean. So if you have something on your mind, go ahead, but let me read from that book, because it's important. In my opinion, Dr. Kirsten Huang of MIT, I believe he is deceased now. He was emeritus at the time he wrote this book. The book is called A Superfluid Universe. Kirsten Huang, his last name is spelled Huang, first name Kerson. Professor, MIT, I believe physics, known for the Huang potential in quantum field theory. Let me read from this book to see exactly what this man says about dark energy and dark matter, which after all supposedly represent almost, what is it, Michael? Almost 95% of the so-called observable universe?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's around there.
Yeah, so it's quite a fraction. It's the major. So basically, we have no freaking clue what most of our universe is composed of. That's interesting. So they tell us that physics is almost over, that we have accomplished great things. I think physics is in our infancy. Oh, before I start with Dr. Wang, let me do a little plug on. I've been on 2 recent podcasts. You guys, please, all of your subscribers, all of your followers, please go and see Ashton Forbes, the interview with him on his new podcast called Hard Truths, Truths, Hard Truths. I was his first interview. Good guy, very, very intelligent, very interesting story to say on a certain aircraft disappearance. I'll leave it there. That's his baby. I'm pretty sure one day he shall prove it. Certain people will dislike that very much. And I hope they do not cause him any harm. Again, Ashton Forbes and I, Salvatore Pais, who never suicide ourselves. Now, what was I gonna say? Yes, and the second is it's called Demystify Sci. So it's Demystify. I forgot how you spell that. I think it's MYSTIT. Anyway, I suck at spelling. Sorry. So Demystify Sci, like SCI, the abbreviation for science. Podcast. It's with Dr. Anastasia and Dr. Shiloh, and I think it's worthwhile. It's 2 hours and 37 minutes. 2 hours and 37 minutes. So let's beat that. Jeremy, come on, bro.
That one was great, man. I've watched both of these in
Yeah.
preparation for this interview, so there won't be a lot of overlap. We'll try to cut down on some of the stuff. Maybe we'll give a little bit of summary of what was discussed in some of these, just real quick.
Sure, sure.
This was a great one. People should definitely go and watch this and subscribe to this channel because these guys are super underviewed. I'm going to have Anastasia and Shiloh on coming up at some point here in the future too, to promote their channel a little bit more.
Anastasia is amazing, and so is Shiloh. But Anastasia, she actually went to a thesis advisor and said, "Unless you tell me what the nature of what is electrical charge, I refuse to continue work on my thesis." I mean, talk about wow. Anyway, I'm sorry, Jeremy. Go ahead. Sir.
Yeah, there's so many fundamentals and stuff, and they do a great job of bringing it back to those things and questioning those ideas and some of these issues. So definitely go check that one out. And then Ashton Forbes, he's the other channel there. I had Ashton on as well. Definitely a smart guy. Got me asking a whole bunch of questions about, what does a Bose-Einstein condensate or a superconductor look like under thermal imaging? And, we should
ask Michael Perrone. As a matter of fact, I suggest if Ashton is watching right now, have Michael Perrone on. And of course, Jeremy and Jeremiah Popp, have them on. Anyway, this is what I call the future of science and engineering. Thank God we got you, bros. And thank God you're young. The enemy has a lot to worry about. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So I also have, we got a bunch of these patents. I want to get through the patents individually. I want to ask a couple questions about some of these patents in specific.
All right, but let me start with the superfluid universe first. I got to read this from Kirsten Wang.
Yes.
Trust me, we owe this to this man. This man is a good friend of Freeman Dyson. Again, Freeman Dyson, the man known for the S matrix, the first to unify the works of Richard Feynman, Tomonaga, and Julian Schwinger as far as the basis of quantum electrodynamics. If it wasn't for this man, for Freeman Dyson, forget about it. When nobody would understand QED, trust me, especially Schwinger's work. Wow. Anyway, what was I gonna say? Yes. So Kirsten Wang, an incredible, brilliant man. I think he hit on what exactly dark energy and dark matter is. Please let me read from this. I've even marked the page. I have so many notes in this. My God, you should see the margin of this book. I remember one time it was Pierre de Fermat that said that he actually found a very simple proof to his Fermat's last theorem, but the margin of his particular book, it was too narrow for him to actually give the entire proof. Can you imagine how? And then how? Anyway, I'm diverging again. Okay, so let me read this. Oh my goodness, this shows that I'm an old dude who needs additional enlightenment over here. Okay, so listen to this, man, because really we're talking about the intersection of quantum field theory, general relativity, and condensed matter physics. Listen, please. Nature, however, does not know about our subdivisions and exhibits phenomena that cut across all our specialities. I find such a situation in the great puzzles of our time, dark energy and dark matter. These phenomena may find explanations in the fact that the Higgs field of particle theory and or an extension of it fills all of space, making the whole universe a superfluid by virtue of the dynamics of its quantum phase. In short, we propose that dark energy is the energy density of the superfluid, and dark matter is the deviation of the superfluid density from its equilibrium value. And gentlemen and ladies who are watching this, out of equilibrium phenomena. So when you drive things out of equilibrium, it seems that it talks to not only dark energy, but dark matter.
Would that imply that all of the areas that have excess dark matter might already be populated by some other species?
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's profound, brother. I didn't. Again, thank God you're the future, man. You know, nah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, sure. Oh my God. That's a very, why
Or
win?
there could be natural phenomena as well that use up some of
Axions.
that energy.
You know what I'm saying? All these machos, whims, axions, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying let's stop looking for it because there are billions of dollars invested in this rather interesting experimental work. But remember the axion work, this is not Frank Wilczek's original axion. This is a new breed, something that I think, I forget her name, Kathy Fries is working on. She was on Brian Keating recently talking on the axion experiment. I've tried to get on Brian Keating's podcast before. Actually, someone asked him about my work and he like dismissed it out of hand. Him and I share an alma mater, man. At least out of, you know what I'm saying? Case Western Reserve University, we both graduates, alumni of it. I mean, give me a chance over here, brother. I don't know, man, but if he ever watches this, come on, Brian. Come on, man. Otherwise, how am I to prove that Pais science is not pseudoscience? But if you don't,
this is the thing: is so many of these people they're relying on so hard on theory, and theory's good to a certain extent. A lot of it's based on a history of experiment. But really, I'll let Richard Feynman say it as he said it best.
To discuss how we would look for a new law.
Right.
In general, we look for a new law by the following process. First, we guess it. Then we well, don't laugh. That's really true. Then we compute the consequences of the guess to see if this is right, if this law that we guessed is right, we see what it would imply. And then we compare those computation results to nature, or we say compare to experiment or experience. Compare it directly with observation to see if it works. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. And that simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't make a difference how beautiful your guess is. It doesn't make a difference how smart you are who made the guess or what his name is. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
And that's
Experiment trumps theory every time.
Absolutely. And now the whole issue of gravity, there's a lot of theories out there on gravity, quantum gravity. You know, I love that spiel that Kurt Jamungle did when you did your first interview on Theories of Everything, where he laid out.
Kudos to him, and a plug for his show, Theories of Everything.
Yes,
Really
absolutely.
good show.
I'm going to bring a couple other people in here really soon, too, that are waiting in the back room now that I played that clip. So let me introduce some friends.
Michael, you and I eventually have to discuss the room temperature superconductor. Look at that paper that Jeremy archived, Victor Lagno's paper. Look at his last page, how he basically says that it's we'll talk more on it, but it basically, it says that I use an alternating magnetic field to disrupt the surface superconductor material. And then because a Bose-Einstein condensate really forms, then I use an alternating current to dynamically move the condensate.
Right. So there's a few engineering particular questions about that. I get the theory side.
We'll talk more. Yeah, we'll talk more. I mean, you are the real material scientist. I just touch, you know, I read a lot, man. I'm a jack of all trades, maybe master of none, but at least I think, man. I'm not afraid to freaking think. You know what I'm saying? Some people are afraid to go to even just, you know what? What do you mean thinking outside the box? How about you make the box disappear? Totally open system. Anyway.
Can I just go back real quick to the superfluid universe that we were talking about? I can't help but observe the similarity between the older concept of the ether as well as pressure differentials in that, like scalar waves or longitudinal waves in the ether, and the pressure differentials that you're talking about in your thing. That was all.
Very good observation, guys. Let's not forget the original Maxwell equations, 20 equations, 20 unknowns, written in quaternion, so vector plus scalar formalism. Talk to what? Dynamics over what? Cells in what? Ether. But nobody wants to talk about the luminiferous ether because they think Einstein did away with it. Read 1921's paper, Einstein, how he says we need the ether. Space-time without a dynamic ether could not exist. How come nobody cites that paper?
It's well, see, the thing is, so I think the point of confusion in mainstream physics is that you had the Michelson-Morley experiment, which was very publicized, and people assumed that because the ether or the material medium in which electromagnetic waves propagate has no reference frame of its own, that must mean it has no material properties. But precisely a material made of virtual particles can obey covariance from different reference frames.
Right on, brother.
So you can have a material made of virtual particles that's still generally covariant. And the reason that we as observers observe a constant speed of light is simply because particles are still light. They're just solitonic. There's nonlinearities added that stabilize the particles. But if they're still fundamentally electromagnetic, if all the forces are unified, then they'll still be affected by that local refractive index. So an observer made of particles will only ever see a constant speed of light. They'll bend along with the curvature, or the refractive index, I should say.
Think of life. Let's bring biology into this. Life is a far from equilibrium, out of equilibrium, nonlinear phenomena. Without that, we wouldn't exist. Doesn't that say something? We really are an emergent, right? Life is sort of like an emergent property out of. I gotta read. We gotta discuss what time is. I gotta read. After I read this book, A Superfluid Universe by Kirsten Huang, dude, I came up with this. Listen to this, okay? Time may be an informational energy collective field, whether it is emergent or fundamental, will depend on the nature of the collective fields involved. And I also say time is an energetic property of nature that prevents everything from happening at once. You're muted.
I like
this
that.
is interesting. I need to think about that more because you have thermodynamic time and then you have physical time in terms of particles interacting and scattering and stuff. And I think thermodynamic time and physical time might not be the same thing fundamentally.
If that's true, then what do you think about Wheeler's single electron theorem? That maybe it's just one electron that's bouncing around the entire universe, making all these loops.
It's what put Feynman on the whole idea of the path integral. It's what gave him the idea that basically brought QED into birth, the birth QED.
You have a photon is a superposition of half of the energy traveling forward in time towards a destination and half of the energy traveling away from the destination backwards in time.
Right.
You can't physically, there's no way to tell which it is.
Remember what Feynman said of the positron? What's a positron? It's an electron that travels backwards in time. That's right. That's right, Jared. You know.
And then the thermodynamic time is a little bit different than that, though. So you've got forward and backward in particles, and you can do that at the quantum scale. You can do that just fine.
What do you think of Eric Weinstein's idea that there may be multiple dimensions of time, just as we have multiple dimensions of space? Like Hilbert space is n-dimensional as n approaches infinity. What if time is similar?
Absolutely. If I can just jump in on that real quick. Especially when you're talking about your Schwinger levels, and space-time is getting like squeezed in one way, but not the other way, and you start getting birefringence. Now you have a different aspect for time in one direction than the other. You get it spread apart far enough, and from the local reference points between the separated charges, you actually have zero time movement going on.
Right on, brother.
David Chester backstage looks like he
was.
Very
good. Very good, bro. Jared, nice.
Hey, David.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Hey, a legend. What's up, brother?
Hopefully my microphone's working.
The only other man out there that thinks Jack S. Anyway, is a great mind. No, anyway, never mind. Yeah, let's leave it there. He thinks of my work. Oh my God, Dave, man.
Anyway, well, he has a lot of thoughts.
It's strange because his Sarfati field looks identical to yours.
It's very similar. Yeah.
Dave, you're a little bit too loud.
I remember when I first heard Dr. Sarfati speak, it reminded me of something my grandma used to tell me. Said, keep your words soft and sweet, just in case you have to eat them. Do you think Jackass over there eats alone? No, I'm kidding.
I mean, who does he collaborate with?
Anyway,
hey, you know what? I got Jack backstage too, so no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not just kidding. This is gonna get crowded real fast, man.
Dude, he's a smart dude, but come on, man. He's got to give people some you can't excuse my language. You can't call people, idiots and expect them to love you. You know what I'm saying? It's human nature.
Yeah.
Am I right or am I wrong?
He's that sort of Brooklyn personality type of,
Yeah, but come on. Lenny Susskind, Brooklyn plumber, for goodness sake. That's what he started as a plumber. You never hear him. I mean, the guy is like the epitome of gentleness.
Well, there's kind of two different ways to be insulted.
In the same way.
Here's a great question from the audience. We got a $20 super chat. This Drake89 wants to know: are large lasers like they have at Lawrence Livermore a viable approach to exceeding the Schwinger limit? And there was a division that's still classified to this day called Q division, where they built these really high-powered lasers and they pointed them at each other.
Bravo, Jeremy! I applaud your knowledge of these stuff, dude. Do you know how few people? But anyway, look. The bottom line is this. Just think of it this way. I'm not going to answer the question, but in a way I'll answer it. But in a way I won't, because I have to be careful. Remember my disclaimer. Again, we're not here to educate and enlighten our enemies, right? EQ. We're not here to do that, brothers. All right? They're enlightened enough. They got us in the crosshairs. But anyway, look, the bottom line is this. The physics, you will know, Dave. Come on. The physics prize for this year, what? Attosecond lasers for electron dynamics. Need I say more? And what do those 10 to the minus 18 second pulses do? David, you know more about this than I'll ever. but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Of course, they're gonna be used for certain things. And by the way, attosecond lasers, just like femtosecond lasers, but much can be used to create something called cold plasma, out of equilibrium plasmas, non-thermal plasmas. So anyway.
If I can just jump in and answer that question real quick, you might want to look up, to the person who asked the question, you might want to look up the SLAC linear collider experiment E144. That was the experiment done in 1995 and 1996, where they produced 100 particle pairs. It was a inelastic process, though, so it wasn't a true Schwinger effect, but it was close enough. It was a great analog of it. Highly recommend looking that up. And that was in 95 and 96. The second part of that is the Dolphin experiment from 1980, where they exploded a nuke, funneled all that energy into a laser. The energy density of that experiment was getting damn close. And then that was 1980. So you can safely assume beyond that, the experimental possibilities, especially for the black world, were definitely capable of breaking the Schwinger limit.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's a very real process. And if you consider that atoms themselves are high energy density, that gets you a lot closer to the Schwinger limit.
Can I bring it to the superforce equation 1? I don't know, Dave, if you've seen this. You know, it's such a freaking small paper, 3 pages, just 3 pages of very simple math compared to the math you do, brother. Oh my God, you know. But anyway, you know, very simple crap. And equation 1 basically says the superforce, which is c to the 4th divided by big G, equals the energy gradient at both the Planck scale and the horizon scale, right? But that's not the key. You can basically say, you can extrapolate, because I'm an engineer. That's the truth. I wish I had great physics pedigree, because maybe then they wouldn't reject my freaking papers like every 12 hours. Anyway, you know, I don't want to get
well,
that.
so it's not an exact equality, but you're arguing that it's potentially of order of magnitude, which is
on
a
the
curious
order, right? And
observation.
then they hold on all others. So if you put in that equations in the mass, so it's basically the superforce is on the order of a mass. Say it's the mass of the proton, c squared, divided by some reference length that has to do with how the superforce treats the proton. Guess what? We get the Schwarzschild radius. Schwarzschild, I can never pronounce it. The Schwarzschild radius for the proton, 10 to the minus 54 meters. You know, the 2 big G m divided by c squared, that one. We get that. So in other words, the superforce treats the proton like a black hole, bro. And if it treats the proton like a black hole, how about the other particles? Anyway.
So were you aware that that equation is a reformulation of Dirac's large number hypothesis?
Really? No.
I fooled around with the math.
I swear I don't.
Yeah, so
oh my God,
it
no,
literally,
it's totally original. I mean, from my perspective.
It's a curious observation. I mean, I'll be frank, the paper reads a little wild.
Excuse my language. You're right. Oh, holy crap.
I'm not surprised that a lot of academics wouldn't want to read it. There's a lot of wild claims in it in regards to quantum mechanics. But I thought there was 2 interesting observations in that paper. Maybe a lot of other things I would have ignored. But the first interesting one was exactly this, your point you're making. I mean, I reformulated the equations. It literally, you can argue it's a reformulation of Dirac's large number hypothesis, which has been a sort of, I mean, it's this controversial idea because it's a little numerological sounding, but then Paul Dirac thought of it. So it's like, well, he's not a crazy guy. So what do we do with this? And it has been a popular idea somewhat amongst kind of more interesting thinkers who are, you know, outside the box, let's say. So I thought that was curious at least, but yeah, I thought you made maybe 2 strong statements to say it's like equal. So that might mislead some people to think that you're maybe saying something overconfidently, but I mean, it's something to explore. Maybe there's something there, maybe not, I'm not sure. So it at least seemed plausible for that one aspect of it.
I appreciate it, Dave. Thanks. I appreciate that. But what did you think of the when I was able to show based on the fine structure constant, I mean, did you see how simple you can prove the gravitational force equals the strong nuclear force at the Planck scale equals the superforce?
I thought that was a bunch of nonsense, to be honest. I
Oh,
didn't
boy.
understand what you're saying whatsoever.
Well, I mean, the equations.
Maybe I
I
can-
looked into the numbers at least, and I saw that. I mean, all the numbers just off Wikipedia, they match up at the very least. So you got that.
Jeremiah.
But yeah. So what he was saying, I think, David, is at the roughly the radius of the proton, or at least of nucleons, that's where the strong force is approximately that much, 1/137 or 137 times stronger than the electromagnetic force. And I mean, there's a lot of people who've mentioned like,
No, is that at the Planck scale? We're not talking about 10 to the minus. We're not
well,
talking
initially. So you have to connect it first to the. So the strong force is 137 times stronger than electromagnetism at the length of at the radius of roughly nucleons. But then when you go down to the Planck scale, then they are equal, and g to the c over fourth is. But
I mean, it depends on your
and
normalization
equals the
scheme,
gravitation.
probably. So
how can
like,
you have
I
the
mean-
strong nuclear force? So how can you have the highest force we've got that we know of that operates on the order at 10 to the minus 15 meters? How can you have that force at 10 to the minus 35 meters be equal to the gravitational force at that scale, at the Planck scale, right? Equal to the superforce. You can't unless the superforce is the force of unification.
Well, right.
What does that even mean?
What David's saying is 1/137 doesn't stay the case, and for a lot of models of quantum mechanics, as you get smaller and smaller scales, the strong force or the relative strength diverges. It gets larger instead of smaller because, well, if you consider like the strong force is sort of like a Casimir force between the protons and neutrons and things, then if you consider it like that, then as they get closer and closer, that force should keep increasing, diverging away from electromagnetism. But yeah, I mean, mathematically, at least, when you take these equations and draw these ratios, then yes, you get the same thing. But yeah, that's what David was saying towards renormalization, right. I think.
Yeah. What was the other thing you liked, Dave? What was the other thing you liked?
Well, I mean, the first section and the last section, but frankly, the last section was it was very short. It was a paragraph or two, and all.
Oh,
I
you
mean,
talking about engineering the superforce? That one you like?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, which is very similar to what Jack Sarfati is claiming, but I mean, you've also had patents that go back as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. In terms of the stuff in the middle of the paper, I thought that even your earlier paper or your earlier patent in 2017 at least had a more coherent attempt at talking about like vacuum energy and stuff. I mean, like the 2023 Superforce paper.
Look at the Schrodinger equation and how can you get basically from that equivalence of, I don't know what you'd call it, but read carefully that section. How can you get one of the equation you get E equal h nu? The other equation you get is the Broyle, basically, lambda equal, on the order of h bar divided by mv divided by the momentum. And the other one you get is a superforce, basically based on the rest energy gradient. So again, pointing to equation 1. And dude, GR itself, you basically, if you reorganize based on just a simple dimensional analysis, because you have 1 divided by L squared on the left side, representing the space-time curvature, is on the order or equal, it depends how you want to treat it, 1 divided by the superforce times the C sub mu, which is really what? E divided by L cubed as an energy density. So if you reorganize, which is very simple from a mathematical standpoint, it actually says it's the superforce acting as a scalar operator on the space-time curvature that gives rise to matter, energy density. It's that freaking simple. So it's a new perspective on old physics. That's what I'm arguing for. And you know what this talks to? And I know, Dave, you how should I say? Look, bro, I really respect your physics. I mean, your mathematics is far above my level. It's true. And you are what? Quantum research. I mean, you deal with Kerwin. I forget his name. God Almighty. Who's
Clee Irwin.
Clee Irwin. I mean, this guy is fascinating. I mean, but your mathematics is unbelievable. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say here is that all I'm trying to get is some acceptance that I'm not a freaking crackpot, that this is not pseudoscience. Just take a closer look to what I have to say rather than just dismiss it all of a sudden. Do you know that the physicists, they won't talk to me? For example, I started a conversation with Stefan Alexander. You know Stefan, good friend of Eric Weinstein, also Brian Keating, a good friend of Kurt Jaimungal. But anyway, at least he knows, you know. And I sent him all the papers. That podcast really went really, really well. And I thought he never even responded to my emails. That shows you, I mean, if
everyone's busy
on a lot of things. You saw that
podcast. Yeah, it could be that too.
After you see that podcast, would you call me a crank and a crackpot? The truth.
Yeah, I would love to get into plasmas.
I don't mind if you tell me the truth. Tell me the truth right here.
I don't think. I think everyone's a human. Like everyone's always asking, is he a genius or a crackpot? And I mean, I think most of these cases it's somewhere in the middle.
I'm neither, but I'm someone that should be heard. Am I right that people should be heard with their ideas?
Everyone should be granted freedom to, express their voice, and then everyone should be granted freedom to listen to whoever they want.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad. Professor Alexander didn't respond to my Instagram request, so.
I was wondering, Mr. Pais, sir, I was wondering if I could very briefly.
I'm not on social media, so if you ever send me like LinkedIn or whatever, I'm not. If you get any emails from someone that says it's me, no, I'm not on any social media. And Jeremy can testify to that. I mean, I'm freaking so old school. I still use a flip phone. Anyway. Yeah. All right.
I didn't even think you were a real person at first back in 2018 when your patents came out. I'll be honest, and it wasn't until Brett Tingley sent me confirmation that I was like, all right.
I love Brett, man. I wish him and I kept close, but after I have a feel between you, and I'm gonna say it. I mean, what the hell? I'm already in their crosshairs. They don't like me. Period. Trust me, especially the 3-letter ones. I have a feeling Tyler Rogway. Put it this way, he had a lot to do with my work being called UFO, Navy patents. And dude, once you call them that, once you call them unacknowledged flying objects, okay? Once you call them that, not UAPs. Come on, Jacques Vallée, you can do better.
Jeremy, could I jump in really quickly? If that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Mike Rossi of Was it your channel?
Dave or David Rossi? Yes. Mr. Pais, sir, I am a great admirer of your work.
Call me brother.
I'm a great. Thank you. I'm a great admirer of your work. I just had one thing I wanted to sort of ask/say, and then I'm happy to sort of bow out a little bit. So. We see that in 1957, Li and Yang won the Nobel Prize for the broken symmetry of opposite charges. Yeah, right. We see that it's been speculated that stabilization of disequilibrium could potentially be tapped via the third Heaviside component or a third time derivative. And we know that closed current loop symmetry restores, closed current loop circuits restores Lorentz symmetry, basically throwing out the use of the A field. And so, do you think it's possible, sir, to we have
brother?
Sorry about that. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'll say very briefly here. We have many mutual friends. I was curious if you think that utilizing this third Heaviside component longitudinally may in fact enable some of the effects that you that you have, which I fully personally agree with, pertaining to breaking of symmetry with mass and inertia and all of that. So. Do you think there's something there in that regard with the third Heaviside component? It's been speculated there's an entire, basically wire, if you will, that misses the circuit that very few engineers are familiar with.
I'll give you my Francis Urquhart response so I don't give you the disclaimer crap.
Sure.
Francis Urquhart coming up, okay? You may possibly say so. I couldn't possibly comment.
Thank you, sir. Brother, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. By the way, tremendous mind over here, man. All you guys, do you guys get up in the morning and like sit on the porcelain Buddha and read all the freaking what's it called, the physical review letters, all the latest papers? Because I used to do that. I bet you guys do too.
Actually, if I could, one more thing, Sal, one more thing, if I could ask, would you say that the Feynman's path integral may in fact lead to this access of the superforce? It's been proposed that when these longitudinal waves are hit, there's this sort of caduceus-like break apart that occurs. Would you say that there may be something there?
If Dave agrees with the statements, I would say yes.
Okay.
But only if he does. Otherwise, no, nothing.
Thank you.
I'd have to think about it more. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to just get the terminology synced up to 100% verify.
So, Dave, you were talking about longitudinal things. Is that like in terms of the if you don't have the gauge potentials of, or if you don't fix the gauge potentials of electromagnetism, and that gives you a
in other words, Michael, yes, sorry, what I'm proposing is following the work of Myron Evans, Terry Barrett, Pudov, Mr. Pais, the notion of a generally covariant higher symmetry second order effect that gives rise to things like quadrupole mass oscillation that you can then use to curve the geometry of space-time, which would be a gravitational wave. Yeah.
Okay. So this isn't simply the second wave equation that comes out of electromagnetism if you don't hold the gauge.
No, there's an entire Heaviside component that's been thrown out in like the late 1880s that seem for some reason. I mean, okay, if you look, for example, there's no textbook in North America.
Mr. Rossi, brother, listen. Following your statement, I gotta follow with a statement to show you how simple this all can be.
Right.
And it brings into question, how long ago was this known? Is the work of Walter Bosley, Dr. Joseph Farrell, other luminaries correct? Are we dealing here with a possible breakaway civilization of sorts?
Well, have you seen Sal E.T. Whitaker's paper from 1903?
And I'm not talking about Richard
I've studied that in
Dorman,
great detail,
my work. He loves Eric W. Davis, so
David, you've seen E.T. Whitaker's paper of the bidirectional scalar.
I've studied that to great detail.
Two papers that he wrote in 1904, I think that, those two
1903 and 04.
Unbelievable, man. This guy was, again, almost dismissed. Very few people know of those two papers.
In my opinion, that work merges the world of the non-material with the material, basically. Yeah, there's a beauty to it in a certain way, in my humble opinion. But if I could say very quickly, Michael, what you were discussing, the notion is that essentially because of the A field that Feynman had talked about, the potentials, you can essentially use the del cross operator, both theoretically and then practically in the lab, to induce a caduceus-like axis along the z-axis to give an absolute, to have absolute motion instead of relative motion. So you now have your own, dare I say, gravitational field being emitted from the 0 point.
Oh, smart people here.
Wouldn't the chirality of that be important?
Sure, I believe that there's a way to stabilize it, in my humble opinion. Very much so, absolutely. The chirality is very significant. I think when things are done in the lab practically with things like liquid helium, you can start to get some very interesting results. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, agreed.
So it sounds to me like you might be talking about two different aspects. I'm not sure, but in terms of that Heaviside term, I'd be curious to see if that's the same thing as Ampere's law. Like Ampere's law isn't actually the work of Ampere. And so if you look at what Ampere actually did, there was a term, this longitudinal term, that got dropped because they couldn't, if you had two open circuits,
Lorentz,
they dropped.
Sorry to cut you off. Lorentz said that it has no physical significance outside of the right angle vector, and they threw the baby out with the bathwater, and it was a complete mistake.
Crazy.
Basically, because Lorenz said to Maxwell, "You'll never get quaternions across to the engineers at the time." So he said, "You got to stop it." He said, "You got to get it simpler." So
that's why we love Heaviside.
Right. And that's why, if you look, by the way, there's no textbook in North America that talks about the magnitude of the pointing vector. At best, they'll talk about potential intensity, but not the magnitude of a potential.
Right.
So that's, I'm speaking in code, Sal, if you catch my drift.
No, I do. And don't call yourself humble, brother. Your knowledge is very extensive and very, very particular as well, which is interesting, how he can bridge the two worlds. But anyway, listen, GM theory by Dr. John Brandenburg, very interesting idea of what the pointing vector represents. You know, this man actually was able to show the Higgs, we talk about the mass of the Higgs before it was even, whatever, experimentally shown, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Look at his gem theory. It is quite a gem. Paul Murad had a lot to do with that as well. It's the Murad-Brandenburg equations. I really miss Paul, man. The only person that actually returned a very kind, when he read the conditional possibility of spacecraft propulsion at superluminal speeds, that paper that I sent you, Jeremy, you put that in the archive, right? I mean, I wish it was in the archive, but anyway, yeah, it'll never see archive stuff. But anyway, in that paper, he said, goodness gracious, this belongs in a much better journal than what I eventually, after 4 years of back and forth, I was able to publish that. That shows you, man. But listen, your ideas, Mr. Rossi, sir. Well, I can't remember your first name, so I call you Mr. Rossi.
David. But
I say brother, we're all brothers, so it'd be like, which one?
No, you can say David. By the way, no, whatever David. You like, whatever you like. Yes.
So the physicist is Dave, and you're Dave, but you sound like you have quite a physics background.
I'm self-taught, sir.
You're kidding me.
No, I'll leave it at that for now. If you want to
talk, I'm saying, this is what I'm talking about right here. This is what I'm talking about, because I said it on Ashton Forbes. I said it on Demystify Sci podcast. I said it, and I'm saying it again. Joe the plumber can freaking publish in Physical Review letters. It shouldn't be based on pedigree and who you know and how much you kissed the of the chief editor and all that, and who you. I'm sick and tired of this hierarchy. Okay, and the more you talk, the more waves you make, the more it tears you apart, and they have nothing to do with you.
Sal, can I ask you a quick? Go ahead. Question, Sal. Do you think that if hypothetically, do you think that if these longitudinal waves existed, that they would have a sort of caduceus-like coil around them, if you will, which speaks to the red shift and blue shift of what's been seen in UAP?
I'm starting to think that we should go back and studying vortex dynamics. And Dave knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. In the beginning, they were studying heavy-duty vortex dynamics before all of a sudden it just disappeared. I have a feeling that's very essential in all this. Don't forget James Clerk Maxwell. What cellular vortices in what? In ether, luminiferous ether. But anyway, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we go?
So when you mean caduceus coils, are you literally talking about caduceus, like the coils that someone made with the 90-degree angles in it?
Basically, I'm proposing, as is Sal probably more than me, that the metaphysics and physics merge very eloquently.
So I'm just trying to connect this to physics I'm familiar with. So
sure.
So basically, you have some crossed fields, and people assume that those crossed fields superimpose, but perhaps you're getting an outer product.
You gotta curl the pointing vector, basically.
Right. So add a curl to your scalar potential, and then you get this natural self-assembling formation where if you already have a vector direction, and you're putting that vector into an area of space-time where, say, you have an active cold plasma or something on those lines, the kinds of experiments I've been playing with, and you oscillate that longitudinally, you get self-assembling structures that tend to be vortexial and sheathed. So they're like mini Birkeland currents. You'll get one counter-rotating current around the other, and they'll tend to wrap up on each other and self-assemble. Then if you rip them back in the opposite direction quickly enough under a magnetic field, they form these really complicated little structures called toroids. And they will form a torus inside of a torus inside of a torus, continuously wrapping themselves up into more and more complex geometries fed by the energy they're stealing from the outside low energy cold plasma conditions by basically rectifying the randomized background particle flux of all these virtual positron electron pairs that are partially separating. So you get kind of rectification of the background field, which is, I think, one way that we can access Planck scale interactions by using longitudinally pumped waves through an active plasma.
Jeremiah, have you seen Memes and Destruction's channel? He's got some stuff you should definitely see then.
Probably I should. I have not.
Yeah, he's got this figure 8 knot thing that seems relevant to that maybe. But yeah, okay. So you're saying so it's not necessarily, Dave, a outer product term that gives you a pseudoscalar. It's actually longitudinal waves, not scalar terms yet.
I'm saying when you implement the A field or the ether or the vacuum, whatever you want to call it, into the equations or the
experiments. Yeah, you know what? I've noticed terminology matters. So let's stick to quantum vacuum. Let's not use things that they no longer, because that's why they call us crackpots and charlatans and whatnot, because we don't use sometimes the proper terminology. Let's play the game. Let's play the game.
It's so important. You gotta connect it to the terms that are fashionable in science and whatever given you.
Is using Dirac-C still fashionable? Or do we just want to say quantum foam? I mean, there are many choices.
Dirac-C, well, we can ask Dave because he is the actual working physicist. I mean,
that refers specifically to, I guess, the positrons in some sense, or that's referring specifically to Dirac spinners, whereas the quantum vacuum would contain fluctuations from all quantum fields. So
it's a collective field, right? Yeah.
The Dirac-C is still a fashionable term, but it doesn't refer to everything.
The idea is that the quantum vacuum would act as a negative resistor, so to speak, if that makes sense. That's kind of the notion that I'm following, Michael, if that makes sense. And implementing the quantum vacuum with practical experiment, electromagnetically curving.
Is there experimental evidence of this negative?
But remember what Dave said. That they're different fields. How do the electromagnetic fields interact with these fields? See, that's where the problem really resides. How, at what level do they interact? Dave, can the electromagnetic field interact with all fields we know of? Yes or no?
No, it interacts with charged particles. So gravity interacts with all of the energy and momentum, but electromagnetism only interacts with.
That's what I was afraid of. Mr. Rossi, sir.
You can, once you get into quantum processes, though. All right, actually, once you get into QED and you're, sorry?
Also, I was going to ask you, never mind. Go ahead. I'll let you finish with it.
Well, all right. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at things classically, you need to interact with photons. You need to have something with electric charge. But once you get into the quantum theory, then you have all these loop corrections, these quantum corrections with loop diagrams of the Feynman diagram. So then you can have more convoluted processes that might allow you to have to consider what theory, right? So it's like photons don't interact with gluons, but photons interact with quarks, which interact with gluons.
Well, can we, if I can jump in very quickly.
Wouldn't everything at least interact with the stress energy tensor still?
Right, but if charge parity inversion is equivalent to reflection, then you can manipulate that, in my opinion. To your point.
Hey, I don't know what that means.
Points. Charge parity inversion, as Dr. Myron Evans, Terry Barrett, and a few others had talked about, charge parity symmetry is equivalent to reflection.
Well, there's typically you have
if you can have some type of condensate
parity.
Forgive me, sorry. If you can have some type of quantum state, condensate, excuse me, that can interact with say polarizable conductors, capacitors, etc. At extremely high frequencies, you may be able to break some of that symmetry having to do with.
So, Dave, is it possible under certain conditions to make certain fields interact with fields that they would not normally interact with?
I would say so. In my experiments, yes.
I mean, it's such a vague state. It's hard to,
Same
you know,
in
it
my
depends on the
experience.
context of what you're starting with and what you're ending up with. Yeah, I was comparing like quantum theory to classical theory, but that's not really irrelevant. You know, I mean, everything interacts with gravity, right? Everything interacts with everything in quantum field theory, but those interactions get very weak due to they're more convoluted, right? If something can interact with something which can interact with something else, then the first thing can interact with the third thing through the quantum vacuum. So in that sense, unless you had unless you had two sectors of matter,
there's a transistor
don't interact with anything, but everything interacts with gravity. So gravity, once you put gravity into the quantum field theory, that should allow for everything to interact.
There's a transistor called the Perrone transistor.
Dave, do you think there's such thing as gravitons? And if they exist,
yeah, they're gravitational waves.
Do you think they may be related to photons somehow? You know, between the spin 1, spin 2 interaction.
I don't think so as much as Michael Perrone, but I mean, I mean, if anything, the spin connection is more like a Yang-Mills field, which should be unified with other Yang-Mills fields.
Right. But under certain couplings, say Yukawa coupling, is it possible that these may be photon in nature, something out of phase? See, Feynman, no, not Feynman. Freeman Dyson did not believe in the existence of the graviton. Do you think Freeman Dyson was correct?
No.
I take the quantum field theory perspective. I'm just very much trained in that, and to me, like my thesis computed gravitational waves using Feynman diagrams of gravitons. So my statement is that LIGO has, I mean, okay, you could argue whether there is actually, maybe gravity is fundamentally different and it doesn't have this particle-like aspect, but I mean, I use gravitons to compute gravitational waves as detected by LIGO. So to me, they're gravitational waves. Now, if we want to talk about photons, I mean, that's a different force carrier. So then that brings us into the game of unification. And then, there, you know, obviously there's not a consensus on how to deal with that. I tend to think that they're a little bit different to some degree. And but here's the link. So we were mentioning Whittaker potentials. Well, the Whittaker potentials are encoded in Hertz potentials, and Hertz potentials are often overlooked. And Hertz potentials are mathematically, in a sense, more similar to the space-time metric than electric and magnetic fields. Electric and magnetic fields are more like field strengths or curvatures. The electromagnetic potential is more like a connection, like they both enter covariant derivatives. I know this is getting technical, but
it's good. It's good, Dave. Dave, this is beautiful language. This is the language we must speak in to be understood and perceived as actual, how should I say, professionals. So I agree with you, Dave. You use this language, sir, please.
So your patent in 2017 talked about the Gertzenstein effect.
Yes,
and there was a paper that
effect. The 1960 paper that he published, I think it was in a Soviet journal at the time. Yeah.
All right.
It was very controversial, you know, extremely controversial.
As far as I can tell, it seems fairly reasonable. I mean, I just spent like 2 hours looking into your patent yesterday, but with that effect,
so
basically
it's feasible that Yukawa coupling could actually be the trick here. So in other words, could high frequency gravitational waves be generated, in your opinion?
I think they could be, but it's so weak. I mean, it looked like your 2017 patent, it looked like you were claiming that you can create a magnetic field that's 100 million times stronger than any other human on Earth. So if you could do that, then I think you could do a lot of interesting technological things, such as propulsion. If you can make a magnet that's
harness a
100
magnet
million times stronger than anyone has ever made, then maybe we could do something.
Efforts to get that past the USPTO. This patent examiner, this primary patent examiner, amazing dude. I mean, he really knew his physics. His name was Philip Bonzel. Dude, we went back and forth, but you see, just look at Maxwell's equations, the Heaviside version. We're talking about 4 equations, 4 unknowns, you know, the ones we electrical engineers can use, you know, like Carver Mead. Basically, did you ever see this book by Carver Mead called Collective Electrodynamics? The Quantum Foundation of Electromagnetic Fields. Beautiful book. So beautiful, like under 200 pages. This, again, even he is treated by his own people because he's not in the right section of physics and so forth. You know,
wasn't he at Caltech at one point? I mean,
yes. Well, he's one of the.
But at the end of the day, like, I mean, yeah, he had a nice book, but I don't know. His claims seemed a little over the top to me. I mean, he had these simple way of looking at things that answered exactly the questions he was interested in. I mean, it's not dismissed. People consider it. It's just not the most important textbook ever. I mean,
experiment trumps theory every time. At least give it a chance for experiment. That's what I'm saying.
But he didn't even say anything controversial, really. I mean, he just presented the theory he just took a different perspective and took this collective excitation view, and he was trying to make the theory more accessible. That's my read of it. I don't think he was really saying anything controversial.
Emergence, just like Phil Anderson from a condensed matter physics believed in emergence, macroscopic quantum coherence. It's huge, bro, and I think it can be realized.
So, what were there any predictions of his work that led to that have so far been untested in mainstream science, at least?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, it sounded like he was just trying to describe standard accepted physics, and he was trying to not go into too much quantum mechanics detail.
He was trying to
make it easy to understand.
He was trying to link the gravitational the gravitational field with the electromagnetic field.
Okay, maybe I didn't read that.
Trying to say that one can alter the other under certain conditions. That's the bottom line of I call it the little green book. And in my opinion,
I didn't read far enough.
Looked at very carefully because this guy, in my opinion, is extremely brilliant. I mean, we talk about one of the geniuses of the semiconductor technology. You know.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely he knows what he's talking about. Yeah.
Guy, you know? Anyway, yeah.
Maybe I didn't read far enough. I didn't realize he had.
Give it another look, for my sake. Give it another look,
sure.
and you'll find something quite remarkable in there. But there was also a beautiful. Oh my God! He gave this very short. It's on YouTube. I bet you, if you Google it, you'll see it on the primacy of physics, on how we teach physics nowadays. It's like half an hour, but it's so brilliantly done. I'm not sure how it was received, but you have to see what I'm talking about. It's Carver Mead. I think it's right after a major conference or something. It looks more like a dinner, and then he goes up and just gives a speech for half an hour, but it's so freaking profound. I think I've watched it like 10 times. I can't believe I forgot the title of it, but it's so profound. It's just gorgeously thought through. Dude, man, look, the bottom line is this. We're talking about 4 equations, 4 unknown, simple, heaviside version of Maxwell's equations. You know, the EB fields, the surface charge density, the current density, blah, blah, you know. So look at Faraday's law, and you'll see what I mean. Simple scaling dimensional analysis. So you have the curl of the electric field vector on the order of minus dB dt partial, right? You do a simple manipulation is E, right, divided by reference length on the order of what? On the order of dB dt, right? Which is what? B, like B divided by a reference time. So then really what that says, when you reorganize the thing, it gives you what? E max divided by me max. Again, scaling from the point of view that you take extremes. So E max divided by B max equal what? C. E equals CB is one of the things that Maxwell found, along with C squared equal 1 divided by mu 0 epsilon 0. That's what truly defines James Clerk Maxwell's rendition of Faraday's, that dude Faraday, unbelievable. But this third equation, Faraday's law, basically says E equals CB. This is what I'm talking about, the power of scaling, simple back of the napkin calculation that gives you that. You don't need to solve the freaking equations. Boom, it's right there. It's in your face, it's physical. This is what I like, simple math, not abstract, complex mathematics. How should I say? passing for extremely great physics. Now, I'm not saying that's not needed, because most likely that's the next step once you understand the physicality of the problem from simple mathematics. But this is what I'm saying. If this idea and noticing this thing was able in 1890, what if Bosley was right? What if, I mean, I watched Jeremy. I watched your episode on this thing with Bosley, and he talks basically of like a, and Jeremiah there, Michael was there too. So you know what I'm talking about. This whole, it's almost like an out of equilibrium plasma being excited. I'm not sure exactly how he was excited, but again, it's the engineering of the Prigogine effect. We're talking about non-equilibrium thermodynamics here. Remember the whole idea of order from chaos, the whole idea of organizing highly dissipative structure, highly chaotic structures into something that has order, that is able. Dude, check out this. Google, I bet you it's still there. Time, comma, structure, fluctuations. Time, comma, structure, and fluctuation, something like that. It's the title of his Nobel lecture in 1973, Ilya Prigogine. Dude, this guy, I tell you right off the bat, this guy hit it right on the head. And that's what the Pais effect is all about. It's really the engineering of the Prigogine effect. That's
so if I can see if I'm understanding this this Pais effect, or this basically the scalar term that we're adding to general relativity. It makes not the stress energy relationship it's just you got the stress energy tensor, but then you have stress energy entanglement so you're minimizing or maximizing entanglement entropy with this macroscopic quantum coherent state, and that is affecting gravity. Is that roughly the case, or am I off here?
No, Dave knows the formula well. Is G sub mu nu is on the order of, or equal, 8 pi. See, a lot of people go for natural units, but when they go for natural units, they usually leave out the c to the fourth term. I go for dimensionality because it speaks to the physics of the problem. So leave the dimensions in there, please. Okay, not for the sake of mathematics. Do this. G sub mu nu is on the order of 8 pi big G times T sub mu nu. No, don't get rid of c to the fourth, because it talks to a 1 divided by the superforce. Once you bring the scalar operator on the other side, so it basically says it is the superforce acting on the spatio-temporal geometric structure that gives rise to energy density, hence matter. That's the main point of what the superforce represents. It's just a new, and Mike and I have said it many times, this is not new physics. This is a new perspective on old physics. That's simple. Really, that's all that there is.
Right, because this superforce is just the Planck force. I mean, you have Planck units, so all Planck units get set to 1 in the natural unit system, and then so you could look at what are the Planck force, what units correspond to a Planck force, and that's what you're calling the superforce. So it's probably worth mentioning that the conventional view, well, we don't know exactly what quantum gravity is, but conventionally, we don't look at the Planck force as being a literal force. It's just units, dimensions it's just constants that you can put together that have the dimensions of a force. Whereas
but I think that's where we're going wrong. I think that's where we're going wrong. I think we should look to the physicality of it. Why? The Planck force is the only Planckian so-called, whatever you want to call, parameter. The only Planckian parameter that doesn't have h bar in it. There's a reason. It acts as a bridge between the realms of the very large and the realm of the very small. Hence, it is the bridge that could be the way to quantum gravity. It should be looked at. This c to the 4 divided by big G, I think it's extremely important.
So are we sure that? So how do we know for sure that this is only scalar, or I mean, at least Jack was saying it was only a scalar term in front of the. Like, is it possible that you could multiply the stress energy tensor by a higher rank tensor than just a scalar and still get an additional stress energy tensor, and thereby you would have some space-time properties that are not isotropic?
Yeah, I sent that idea to Jack, and then he said he thought of it.
Are you kidding me? You see what I'm saying? And you think when I say jackass, you know, I'm being mean?
But
look, the guy cannot call people idiots and expect them to respond, how should I say, with flowers. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But anyways, let's just talk about the physics.
Okay, yeah. Let's go back to physics. Okay.
Yeah,
so
if you look at
for now, if you get Maxwell's macroscopic formulation, it has like D and H for the free charges, and then you have the total charge. So you have this notion of free charge and bound charge, summing up to total charge. So Jack kept saying, I mean, I was inspired by Jack. He kept saying, we need a theory of gravity inside matter. We need it. So I just thought, okay, what about the macroscopic formulation of Maxwell's equations? Can you make like a macroscopic formulation of general relativity and claim that there's free and bound stress energy momentum? If you were to do that, then you could get this 4 tensor to convert. You could get this equation that has a 4 tensor instead of the scalar that Jack has. I mean, I don't know if it's the right theory. It's just something simple that you can write down. That's pretty easy. But yeah, so I mean, we shouldn't just say that Jack's idea of the scalar is definitely the way to go. I mean, we don't like, he has a few ideas. So now that's one of his ideas, I guess, right?
Something. So, let me ask you something. Oh, also Michael and you, Jeremiah, also you, Jared, Jeremy, get in. Everybody that has something to say, get in on this one because it's important. What do you think of his idea that you can use a freaking 3-volt DC battery to power that thing that flies, that TikTok thing?
The low power
MGH is larger than that for that given object. So, I mean, I imagine you'd still need to apply at least amounts of energy associated with the potential energy of the object.
Also, he's not the first to make the claim that you can make the UFOs perform with such low power. There was a document back from the 60s where some engineer on the thing said that you could do it with a AA battery, that you could generate enough of a difference in the charge. It's not about the joules, it's about the difference in positive and negative.
Look at equation 7 in my plasma compression fusion device paper. That was the only one I could get published in a pretty good journal. It's the IEEE Transaction on Plasma Science, that one. Look at equation 7 very carefully, and you'll see what I mean by resonance bringing about a condition whereupon it's possible to get energy amplification. So when I saw that, it's like part of me said, no way, and part of me just reminded me of equation 7 in that paper. I tell you, there are a lot of things that seem practically impossible that turn out to be possible, again, under certain conditions.
So
is Jeremiah still
on?
Dude,
Jeremiah's here.
Okay, bro, listen. Please, I think your ideas are absolutely brilliant. I mean, and dude, the spectrum of knowledge you have, if I had a hat on, I would really take it off. But listen, and I mean this, Jeremiah, I hold you in very much admiration. So just from now, when you speak, please speak as if you're talking to a like a non-English speaker, bring, what's the word I'm looking for? This is, God forbid, this is not out of disrespect. I'm just saying, speak slower so people like Joe the plumber can understand exactly what you're saying. I think that's so important because what you have to say is so, sometimes I think it's incredibly brilliant, but sometimes my brain, I'm freaking over a certain age, so if you speak slower, I bet you a lot of people would be absolutely in admiration of you, just like I am.
That's like a really, really kind thing to say, and points out only what 100% of all my friends have ever said to me, which is, dude, slow it down. You just need to slow it down.
Okay. No, for real. I mean, see, the only time you would want to speed up your speech is if you have nothing to say and you're afraid of being found out. But in your case, you really are brilliant, bro. So just, you know.
Well, thanks. Probably giving me too much credit. I mean, everything that I know is just based on what everybody else has taught me. So it's
man. But
reiterations of their stuff.
What do you think science is? What, dude? The word genius. Do you know where it comes from? It means touched by the jinn. It comes from Islam. It comes from an entity of smoke and fire called the jinn. D-J-I-N-N. The jinn. That's where it comes from. Genius, like touched by the jinn. Supposedly these entities, if they touched you, they would invoke certain powers, you know, the whole thing. But anyway, I'm going into, or is it myth?
Oh, anyway. I love etymology. I think it's super important to understand the roots of words and know where they come from. It teaches us about ourselves and about how we came to the conclusions and the terminology we have now. Seems to me that most of us agree. We just use different terms to describe the same darn thing.
Bro, I want to hear you and Michael's and Jeremy's take on this. They also but you are the physicist in the house, as they say. So certain things you cannot talk, because otherwise you're kind of, anyway. See, I can get away with a lot of crap that you cannot. But anyway, look, the problem is that, I mean, what do you think about this stuff that they have changed the terminology from UFO to UAP? What's this phenomena thing to you? What does it mean? Why do you think they made this change? And they're trying to, how should I say, almost change the narrative on this.
I think really the big reason for the change is
years of freaking history. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh, you're exactly right. I think the terminology had to be changed because every single time we get a new term out there and it's not properly defined, it just becomes another version of like the word God, for example, which every single person on Earth is going to have a slightly different way to explain. So UFO had such bad history behind it, and it meant aliens, and it meant, you know, guaranteed all these other contexts that were attached to it. By recontextualizing to UAP or, you know, new terms, we're trying to get away from all the baggage of these other older terms. And
so you think it has to do with derision, that this was something that was done? What do you think, Jeremy? Because Jeremy and I think we vibrate on.
It works on a couple different levels, because I mean, on one hand, you have the people that are saying that they want to destigmatize the term of UFO and try to come up with a new term to move forward. But I don't understand why object is, you know, that's a more serious term than a phenomena. So it's kind of just like, I don't know how it's helping with the stigma, really, especially when nothing's really changed with the evidence and information that they've provided. Because, I mean, you're the one that should be getting in front of Congress and like they should have you, you know, up there.
Let me tell you something, Jeremy, over here, right here. First, this is a first on your podcast. I hope this doesn't explode against me and tomorrow I get fired. But, you know, F it. This has to come out sooner or later. I was in the Russell Senate building on several occasions. But supposedly Eric W. Davis made sure that I didn't get any further. I was told certain things. So, but anyway, yeah, he had a lot to do with it. He's not, how should I say, the greatest of people. I'm sorry. On the Kurt Jaimangal interview, I gave him a break. You know, he did a lot of things against me. I found out that, put it this way, there was a team of a technical staffing committee team, highly placed people. We're talking about GS-15s and some of it above. And you know, GS-15, as you well know, is supposed to be the highest, but there is something above it. Not SCS, it's between SCS, so Senior Executive Service, and GS-15. They are the technical staffing of usually the Senate Armed Services Committee. Also, the House has one too. But anyway, they were sent when these patent applications, you know, when those things from the War Zone Drive, so Tingley and Rogway and the rest started, there was someone said, why was all this money, $500,000 over 3 years for 15 people, you know? And we took there were times that I did not even charge. I was charging out doing something totally different, you know. Just so my peeps, the experimenters, the guys, you know, hands-on like you guys are, not me with my freaking theories, but the actual guys that did the work in lab. Thank God, you know, man. Thank God they exist. But anyway, they send this 4-member team, very high technical dudes. We're talking about above GS15, below SCS, but still very high. They send them to see what were these things all about. So they meet. Yeah, this was a whole day thing that went on, and they went. They talked to the NAVE Invention Evaluation Board and said, "Why did you pass this, guys?" And they basically told them, because we couldn't say anything. These were NAVE fellows, the best of the best Navy can offer, okay, at PAX. So anyway, dude, they basically proved to these guys that these weren't scams. These weren't disinformation. These weren't pseudoscience. That there was something that should have been looked at, should be looked at. I'm not going to say other things that followed, because a lot of things followed. And eventually, people will know the truth. And the truth, brothers, will make you cry. When I say that I had tremendous misery of the mind and the soul, and the blood, sweat, and tears went into this, I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I feel you there, Sal. Let's
can I just say something?
One day all this will be superfluous.
You know? Forgive me. Right before I go, I just wanted to say something to leave everyone with a thought here. And what I'm about to say is not against anyone in particular, so I won't mention any names. But and I'm speaking on my experience here. There seem to be certain scientists in the community at large that publicly are claiming certain things don't work, while they're also privately working on the things they say publicly won't work. So I'll just leave it at that. But I want to thank you guys all for having me. And Sal, sir, it was a pleasure.
Likewise, brother. Please don't be a stranger.
No.
I'm pretty sure hopefully, unless they fire me or something, or who knows what will happen. These days, dude, we are living in very dark, unstable times.
Yeah.
I have never, the road we're on leads to perdition. I'm sorry.
Yep.
My daughter, my 11-year-old tells me, "Daddy, don't be so negative." I can't help it. I try very hard to stay positive.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And whatever you do, don't turn the TV on. Anyway. Okay, I'm done. Sorry, brother. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Peace out, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dave. Sal, I want to get right into a couple things with you here. In this device here, this is a patent you put out in 2015, and let me just copy the patent number and post it in the chat so people can look.
This was a patent that the high energy electromagnetic field generator experiment, the HIMFIG, was modeled on. This was the patent that was modeled on.
In this patent right here, it talks about ceramic material exhibiting a strong piezoelectric effect and property. Is this possible what the Tic Tac skin is made out of, like a ceramic material that's piezoelectric? Could this be a real thing?
This is complete speculation.
Yeah.
But just remember of how the Tic Tac was described. Do you remember those 4 protrusions on its bottom side that looked extremely similar to certain microwave antennas? Do you think, between you and I, do you think the Ebens would do crap like that? Or would it be more like the sports model Bob Lazar described, that basically talks to the superforce 3D printing this thing, this object, whatever it is that flies around, out of space-time itself? 3D printing out of space-time itself. This is the kind of technologies they have. Do you think that's theirs or ours? Come on, guys. Come on. The truth.
Who do you believe to be theirs? Because was it on Tim Ventura or on Ashton Forbes' interview? You were mentioning below the sea possibly for the Tic Tac.
Transmedium, sure. Why not? I mean, if this thing has the ability to basically fool around with the gravitational field, do you think it would matter when it goes inside the water? Dude, think of it this way. What's spontaneous? Okay, Dave the physicist. I'm going to call you Dave the physicist because if I say brother, we're all brothers. And you're going to be who? So I'm going to say Dave the physicist. Think of this. Is it true that spontaneous symmetry breaking is the same or almost the same as an abrupt phase transition, which is basically an abrupt change of state?
Yeah, you can look at spontaneous symmetry breaking as a phase transition of the quantum vacuum itself. But okay, keep going.
Okay, then what I'm saying is, and I'm not going to give the in-between steps. There's no need for that. Trust me. And I can't because of my disclaimer, all that crap that went ahead of it. Think of what you weigh. But basically that enables transmedium. Boom. Can it go through solid matter? And Ashton asked me that. And I choose not to answer that. But you guys are smart enough to figure it out. Can it go through solid matter? Under certain conditions.
Well, that was another, your 2017 patent concluded with a statement saying that the gravitons don't interact with spin half particles, but if you study Dirac electrons in curved spacetime, they're coupled to the frame field, and the frame field is basically a square root of the metric. So I don't know about the whole flying through matter part at that point. I don't know, worth mentioning.
Also, much, how should I say, much simpler than that, because I choose very simple math. If you've noticed all my works, as a matter of fact, there was a podcast that's no longer on, but they were pretty funny guys. Like I used to watch it. Eigen Bros, remember Eigen Bros? Those two physicists. One of the things they complain about, like when they discuss the plasma compression fusion device, they said that my mathematics was too simple to be correct. Anyway, look, the bottom line is think the broil. Think the electron wavelength. And go further. That's all I'm saying. Simple, minimalistic mathematics that can point to very advanced, or what we consider advanced. Because remember, we're still apes playing with rocks, as Anastasia from Demystify Sci at one point said that we're still apes playing with rocks, brother. We bang it around and think we've discovered the quantum vacuum oscillation.
Sal, it might also be worth noting your heme FG, your HemeFig experiment, HemeFig. That there was an inventor out there who may have done something extremely similar, whereby he was putting very high separated charges on spinning disks and applied an ultrasound to it and was able to generate lift from this thing. It just and he was doing it at the exact same time. He developed it from 2010 to 2018, and I think he finally got successful lift around 2016, right around the same exact time that you were doing your experiments. I just love the synchronicity of that.
A lot of people question this. Dude, I swear to you, right here, Jeremy, first, another first. I swear to you, these were my ideas. I didn't have anything to do with reversal, blah, blah. I'm not going to say it because, the algorithm will cut us off. But you know what I'm saying.
That's a good question, because that was one of my first questions.
Which means it talks to a super intelligence. Brother, listen to me. There is something that basically is trying to change these people's narrative. Do you think evil should triumph, or do you think good should lead the way?
Good, light, and love always.
Thank you, brothers.
Well, good always operates in the lightness, and evil always operates in the shadows. So we choose to operate out in the light and keep everything open source for that reason.
That's the way OpenAI started. See what Elon has to say about it. That's why he's so pissed at what happened. And I tell you right off the bat, if Ilya Sutskever would have gone with Elon, it'd be a whole different ball game. But he went with Sam. And I'm not putting Sam down. I think he's a genius. But Sutskever is the real genius over here. But this whole idea of large language models, eventually we got to talk about the triarchy of sentience. I think it has to do with AGI. This whole idea of putting a test based on computational power on, say, being trained on textbook data, not the crap that you see in the internet, but actual manual physics, manual experimental data, theory, whatnot, based on that. And if the AI agent, based on certain prompt engineering, that's very important too. So based on certain prompt engineering parameters, if the AI agent is able to create or generate an original concept, we got it, gentlemen. AGI is feasible. I think that's the test. I call it the triarchy of sentience.
Can I just?
Here's Elon's recent post on Twitter just to see what he feels about AI.
We'll see about that.
Grant.
Can I just add on one more thing to what I was saying? So in your Hemfig experiment, you were doing a wide range of frequencies for the ultrasound. And I was doing some calculations with a MATLAB calculator before this. At the lower frequencies that you were doing, the Lamb waves, the material waves going through it, you start getting into negative group velocities or zero group velocities for those waves, which does all sorts of...
the charge, the surface charge density was extremely small. That's why this thing, and still with 10 to the minus 8 coulombs, they still notice 2 anomalies that are not talked about. It's as if this thing, never took place. And
So,
you can't look.
did
The
these
way
come
they
from-
dismiss my work by saying the Pais effect would not be observed, they could have been a lot kinder about it. And basically said, look, we used 10 to the minus 8 coulombs. The experiment said use 1 coulomb, but at least 1 coulomb. Hence, we couldn't see anything or something of that nature. Not make this general statement, the Pais effect would not. So it gives ammunition to these naysayers and these, Jeremy, you and I know who they really are. We won't say it because we don't want to get, demonetized and shut down, fired, and all that crap. But you and I know who these people represent. Do you think they represent good or evil?
Open-mindedness and intelligence.
So
Yeah.
if I can just finish this question though.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to ask was, did you see a linear relationship or did you see like some weird like dips in there? Because if you were at certain specific low kilohertz frequencies, you get these negative group velocities, but you were going all the way up into the hundreds of kilohertz where this stuff all goes away. So what I was wondering is, remember how linear?
You got to remember that we took it to 100,000 RPM. So what, like 10 to the 4 radians per second. Think of, dude, rapid acceleration transients. Again, this is all about engineering the Prigogine effect. Far from equilibrium excursions, while having an energy flux through the system, while the system is highly nonlinear in nature.
Were you seeing
totally non-equilibrium phenomenon?
Were you seeing most of these effects on the surface? In a lot of my experiments, especially when I have a high velocity across, I'm seeing them in the evanescent wave at the surface charges as they're being oscillated. Just wondering if you were wondering if this is a bulk material effect that actually happened mainly inside the bulk mass, or if it was right at the surface.
The heavy side equations. Let's call them the heavy side Maxwell equations from now on. So it's easier for me not to say the heavy side version of, So the heavy side Maxwell equations, those 4 with 4 anodes, talk to a surface charge density. So this is really a surface effect. And why, Jeremiah? You will know the answer. Because this is a boundary effect. We're talking about boundaries. Again, what do boundaries represent? They represent changes of state.
Right. Changing the refractive index around an object changes the entire way that object interacts with the external environment.
Boom.
So, so that, and there it is. That's why you can do it with low energy, because you don't need to change all the matter inside of something. All you need to do is change the way that the matter in your
and that's why it makes me mad. That's why it makes me mad that Dr. Safadi had to put my work down all the time and agree with Eric W. and all that stuff instead of just being a nice guy, and playing it nice, because it makes me say certain things I don't want to say, because I think Safadi is very intelligent.
He is intelligent, and I later found that
he's a smart man. But I wish he was more like Lenny Susskind. Then, anyway, yeah.
If I may, I just gotta poke at Sarfati a little bit because it's funny. I found that there are 2 ways of being called a schmuck by Sarfati. There's the angry schmuck, and then there's the when he calls you a schmuck with a smile on his face. So if Sarfati's looking at you and he says you're just a schmuck and he's smiling, okay, that's a compliment. Yeah. I mean, that's as good as you're gonna get. But he's really saying his praises to you, and that's what you get. So.
That reminds me of a cut. Yeah. No, you're right.
Yes, you're gonna get out of him.
I have a feeling he's a really nice guy. Once you get to know him, I just have a feeling. But I think
he is a nice guy, man. He's a big time
joker. Through hell too. I think they treated him also with, because of the certain things he was involved with and certain projects he worked on. I think they treated him, they have a way to use you, abuse you, and then discard you, brothers. If that's good, then maybe, just maybe, evil is the new good.
Sal, anyway. If you had the opportunity to do the heme pig experiment again with all the funding and all the resources, would you do it?
Oh my God, yes, but I wouldn't use solids. I'm not gonna go there. Yeah, I already thought it. I know, and I know, dudes. I want certain members of you guys on this team. If it ever happens, it won't happen. The fact that it's not happening. Okay, for the members of the audience and all those nice IC members over there, Jeremiah, they're lurking over there.
Oh yeah, I see them too.
Why not? I remember the one on Ashton Forbes. There was one guy anyway. There was a thing from The Ring, the movie. But listen, the whole idea is this. The fact that they haven't contacted me, that nobody has reached out with all these ideas, everything that's been said, and not at least giving me a CRADA. Yeah, you know what a CRADA is.
Yeah, they might be afraid that you're going to actually, solve it a little too publicly.
But what does that really mean? I mean, let's think here logically. If you come up with these kind of ideas and they don't even give you a possibility to work on them, what does that mean, gentlemen? Dave, the physicist, I'm not going to lay it on you because, you work for certain people who will link to certain people. Jeremy, I'm going to lay it on you, brother, because you say it exactly how it is. What does that mean, Jeremy?
I find a lot of, times, like they said, they will denounce it publicly, but they're working on it privately. They did that to Thomas Townsend Brown, famously, one of the first ones. It's been done to numerous people. So usually, you got to look for people that have a history of publishing lots of stuff and then go silent too, because that tends to suggest that maybe they've gone dark or are no longer able to talk about their work.
Well, sometimes they attack you, they ostracize you. Crackpot, the Bing AI.
But yeah, they call you they go and edit your Wikipedia page and call you a pseudoscientist.
October 18th. October 18th. If you look in the Wayback Machine, October 18th is when they added pseudoscience. And you know what that means. That's like
right before they gave you patents, then they gave you pseudoscience.
I guarantee that within 5 years from now, I won't have a Wikipedia page. Right here, I said as a first on yours, they will get rid of my Wikipedia page. You won't be able to find any of my papers. How much you want to bet on this?
I think you're too big to delete, but you're not too big to diss and try and take apart. So there may be misinformation, but I don't think they can get rid of you.
What we're dealing with here, I believe what we're dealing with here is something that is far, far older than all of us put together, all of our grandfathers, grandparents. We're dealing with a war between the children of the light and the children of darkness. And I'm bringing it down philosophically. This is what we're dealing with. This is epoch making. There's something extreme going on. And I'm not just saying that, oh my goodness, he's gone off the deep end. No, think of what's happening, certain things in history that have happened, what it points to. Think.
I totally agree with what you're saying right now, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. I've seen it happen again and again and again throughout history. All of my childhood heroes, the great inventors and the backyard discoverers, the self-taught geniuses that were making major breakthroughs, all of them were attacked in the same way. Some of them were killed over it. If nothing else, people like Cal had taken their stuff and started working on it.
I would never suicide myself.
It's publicly said right there. I mean, if something happens to you, it wasn't you.
Every chance I get, you know, the other person that had to do that, Andrew Tate, dude, what they did to that dude back in Romania. Oh, by the way, I was born in Romania, so.
You're Romanian apple pie, correct?
Yeah, that's right. American apple pie made in Romania, baby. Woo-hoo! With a little, a little spice there, maybe a little. I wouldn't call it vodka because that's the right. It's called Slibovica. It's like a tsuika. It's a very, 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 very strong plum brandy. Woo, dude, that's all you need. You don't need NyQuil. You don't need to do anything. You know, when you have a major cold, you drink one of those. You boil it first. You drink a whoo.
I think that let's.
Sal, I have a question.
Let's get back to the physics if we can.
How strong of a magnetic field were you able to create with back in the day?
Like nothing compared to what you really need. You know what the Heaviside Maxwell equation speaks to. If you know that the Pais effect that comes out of them, it speaks to it's possible. So in order to, dude, and I said something wrong on Ashton Forbes, and I like to correct it now. I said vacuum decay. As Dave, the physicist, will tell you that'd be a bad day in heaven. So no, we're not talking about vacuum decay. We're talking vacuum breakdown. So this is like you cut the skin, you cut the fabric of space-time. This thing can recongeal itself once you remove the energy density that's involved. Yeah. Vacuum decay? It'd be like that's a bad day in heaven. Because that shit goes at the speed of light, and it just takes everything out. It's like the superintelligence reinventing itself. Like, forget about it.
I've been really wanting to ask you this question, Sal, for a while now. It's been one of the big things that I was taught that I've been pursuing as an end goal, and it's trying to reach a state in a non-visible cold plasma with a very high amount of surface charge. And what we're doing is applying two things at once. So first off, we're applying pulse width vibration at a very, very fast rise time. So that causes physical oscillation of the charged particles.
Are you doing transients?
Extremely high speed transients. And we're passing them through at the same exact time the peak of a twisted magnetic field that actually follows in a strong inward curved geometry of a quadrifilar coil. And so we found that if you increase the angle of the wires, what you end up with is, instead of more of a distributed torus type of shape, you end up more of a beam shape that's very focused. And we're sending that through a pair of activated plates that are very closely spaced, just wide enough apart to get a laser beam in there and try to pump out the positrons that we're trying to generate. So by effectively putting the extra stress on the vacuum, we're trying to separate out the positron-electron pairs, rectify them so that when we pull them out of the space comes in to heal itself, rushes back in, creating a negative energy zone as it will be conventionally thought of. But really, it's you're taking the space apart, and you're taking one side of it, the electrons, pumping them into circuit, leaving the positrons to fly around the outside, recombining them at the back end, at which point they become again part of that space-time, and it expands, creating a pressure, or this would be Tesla's refraction and expansion of the aether. I know that people don't like aether, but I love luminescent aether because it is, So I'm wondering, what do you think about just reaching these energy levels by simply having extremely high charge density and high vibration?
Keep on going, brother. Keep on going.
Hey, no, this is awesome.
But please, for my sake, don't publish these results. Again, we are not here to enlighten and educate the enemy. You understand? So be very careful how much information you put out there and how you put it. Because you remember, Jeremy, you even had an episode. I remember on Kurt's podcast, I mentioned the secret sauce, and you were like, come on, what is this crap? We are not here to enlighten and educate the enemy. We're here to exchange ideas, but keep it superficial and keep it to the point that the enemy cannot get ideas out of. And yet we can still have a vibrant discussion. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I just want to put things. I mean, that's why I'm not bringing up anything that's personal research or anything that's not already.
Yeah,
out
whatever you do, don't show numbers. Don't show ranges of frequency. Don't show surface charge. Nothing of the nature. Talk general stuff.
Yeah, general stuff. Generally speaking, I got a couple ideas for some things. I mean, what Jeremiah was talking about of putting something into a really tiny slit. This is an idea that came from Hal Puthoff was doing a presentation a couple years back, and he
great
showed
dude, man. By the way, Dr. Puthoff, brother, I have no idea why EWD would so rapidly go against me, because he used to work for Dr. Puthoff, and I know Dr. Puthoff and I have a good. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we have a good relationship. I think extremely highly of him, and I don't think he thinks I'm a crackpot. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. So it's very strange.
Anyway, and they've got enough people that have called them crackpots too. It all comes with the territory.
Yeah, it's so freaking unfair. You know that physical review paper in which he basically says, you know, on vacuum polarization, the whole idea of anyway, you know what I'm talking about. The inertial mass being okay.
I won't tell anyone that the secret sauce
paper should win him a freaking Nobel Prize, and yet because he was, you know, dealt with the remote viewing and stuff that's looked up. Dude, man, what's going on here, man? I mean, it drives you. If you didn't have other things in your life, if you didn't have you know what I'm saying? It would drive you mad. Absolute. Why must people behave in that fashion? Is it only me? Am I too sensitive?
Yeah, you got to like put yourself in I don't know. Lately, I've been just not responding to that kind of stuff. I just like, look, we're like a step above a lot of these people that are still just trying to learn this stuff and haven't figured it out. So,
but it still gets you. There are times you can't tell me that.
You have to level out. You can't let it emotionally trigger you, because half of it now is just AI bots, right? They try to trigger and emotionally drain everyone.
What's your actual name? Because I call you crypto analyst. I remember
Thank you, Sal. BurnEye. So my name is BurnEye, so I go by BurnEye.
Listen, brother BurnEye. That doesn't effing excuse them. Period.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying half of them aren't even people. It's just attack bots that the evil dark make up. It's definitely not excusable.
Half of them are not even people. But that doesn't mean it makes them anyway. Remember I talked about the gin? Okay, let me not go off the deep end, because then they'll think I'm a real crackpot. Okay, go ahead.
Hal Puthoff put out this paper on one of his demonstrations where he talked about, you know, a metal mirror, a mirror with a dielectric filling in between, like a window in between, and basically it's a cavity where you can bounce light and focus light inside. And you know, I try to think of you have this Schwinger limit that we're trying to break, right? That's the whole idea behind this.
It's on the order of 10 to the 33 watts per meter square, or on the order of 10 to the 25 joules per meter cube. So we're talking about huge, heavy numbers here.
But just to kind of clarify and add to your point, what you just said there, these numbers are, you know, per large unit volume. We don't need a meter cube, do we? How much actual area do we need over the surface of a craft?
That's the thing.
Plate think this, right? Just one plate.
Equation. It's energy per unit volume.
That's key. Sometimes you don't need high test sections. You don't need big sizes. You see what I'm saying? There are ways. Remember, it's called surface charge density, right? On the bottom area, for a reason, right? Okay.
If you want this number, you got to get this number to go to the 10 to the 18th. So you want it to go really high. So you have an equation of energy divided by volume. So there's two ways to do this. One is to make that volume go super small, right? Supercavitate the volume. The other option is to use the energy, and remember that energy is a waveform, and that we can concentrate the energy in waveform to try to blast, you know, space-time with more energy than it can take. And this relates back to, you know, something in nature that I know that concentrates waveform energy would be a bullwhip, right? If you take a bullwhip,
right, at almost a point in a certain locality, this thing releases its entire energy. Ain't that something? Yeah.
Yes. So it concentrates, and right at the end of the bullwhip is when it releases all that energy. And I thought this is very metaphoric, because if you're a slave owner on a plantation, what do you use to keep your slaves in line? A bullwhip. Yeah. So if we're going to try to free ourselves from the plantation, this might be the way to do it. It was an amazing. I thought about this. It's kind of like wow, this is the weapon.
You are a philosopher at heart, sir. I salute you. You are a philosopher at heart. That's another thing, and I'm pretty sure Dave, the physicist, I'm not sure if he'll agree with me on camera, but I think off camera he would. That physics and philosophy must once again be married to each other. That divorce would have never been allowed.
So the quantum mechanical Hilbert space kind of analog of a bullwhip is when we take a Fourier series and we break it down and create super high rise times. So this is the illustration of the how the Fourier series produces kind of a bullwhip effect to make this really incredibly fast rise time, and that might be the key to pumping enough energy into the quantum vacuum to break the Swinger limit.
Isn't
Just
it
my
awesome,
theory.
though? The Fourier series, isn't it beautiful, man? The whole idea that any polynomial, any mathematical function can be described as sines and cosines, hence vibrations, waves.
This was a video by a guy named Smarter Every Day.
Yeah.
This is just visualizing how the Fourier series works in real time with the idea of this whip, and that the different aspects of the different terms in the Fourier series being extension points along the whip. It's just, it helps really kind of bring it into perspective.
If it's interesting to mention, experimentally, we've actually seen this kind of phenomena happen at the surface of a luminescent or illuminated surface plasma charge on metals, specifically silver and aluminum. We've seen it most, but there will be these sudden events where a very even symmetrical distribution of surface flow discharge, dielectric Fourier discharge style, there will be a sudden flash, a really, really bright event. And when you look at it under a microscope, you'll see that it actually ate away into the metal and completely blasted it apart, even though you only got, say, a few hundred volts at just a few milliamps flowing across that junction. Nowhere near enough. And the spacing between the plates, there's not anywhere close to the capacitance required. In fact, it's like 5 orders of magnitude too small to supply the energy to cause one of these surface deformation effects or one of these cavitation effects at the surface charges, but it doesn't stop them from happening. They seem to spontaneously self-generate.
Jeremiah, let me interrupt you for just 1 second, brother. On the Ashton Forbes interview, somebody asked about EVOs. What's your take on EVOs? Ken Shoulders.
I think they're a critical part. I've studied and read Ken Shoulders.
I feel like crap. Anyway, go
I've
ahead.
studied and read Ken Shoulders. My view on EVOs is they're a direct way to access extremely high magnetic field and extremely high energy density levels in a self-assembling manner. The great part about an exotic vacuum object is that you don't have to make it. You just have to provide the conditions for it to make itself, which means we don't need ultra advanced equipment or incredibly complicated AI level equations in order to allow these effects naturally to occur on their own. And we've done that and done a lot of experiments using exotic vacuum objects, following the work of Ken Shoulders and Morey and a variety of others. So I think it's huge.
If there's one thing I can add on to that, I shared a talk in the private chat here. There was a postdoc that had a good talk, Daniel Brandenburg, and he demonstrated how sonoluminescent cavitating bubbles in water, at the minimal point of cavitation, they can generate potentially up to 10 to the 15 Tesla magnetar level magnetic fields.
Any relation to John Brandenburg?
I don't know yet. I don't think so.
I'll ask him next week. Well, if I'm allowed for that one, who knows? Yeah. After this one, I think I've said too much. Go ahead.
It's worth observing though how ball lightning, EVOs, cavitating bubbles, all of these spherical collapsing or self-sustaining objects all seem to have this common trait of this soliton wave structure inside them that's maintaining them, and that as that collapses and the Q rises, and you get just this condensation of energy in a localized
energy got to go somewhere. I mean, thank God for energy conservation and still keep it within our side of the matrix. Because if God forbid there was anyway, I'm not gonna go on.
Did any of your
dimensions. Hey, what do you guys think of? Do you remember? Okay, I send you this slide presentation that I had on the IAA paper, the room temperature superconducting on the Hawk, the hybrid aerospace undersea craft. That one. There are a bunch of slides. Look carefully at slide 4 to slide 9. I think they're very important. Just look. Dave Mathis thought so too. You know who Dave was, but it is. But anyway, look very careful at slides 4 to slides 9. Okay, it talks about macroscopic quantum coherence, but at one point I talk about the possibility of solving the vacuum catastrophe. The 120 order magnitude discrepancy between QFT and GR by not going at the Planckian scale, but actually working with like a space cell that's like, I forget what the numbers were, but like on the order of 10 to the minus 4 meter or something. But what's weird is that particular length is I know. Look, the man is smart, so I'm going to mention it. Is something that Dr. Eric W. Davis talked about a macroscopic extra dimension of that order, like 10 to the minus 3 or 10 to the minus 4. Look into his work. It was one of the papers. Do you remember, Jeremy, I know we shouldn't give a plug to anyway, but there were certain papers that came out of DIA, one of them written by Eric W. Davis. Look carefully at the dimension of the macroscopic dimension of this extra dimension, and you'll see how it talks to that space cell. And it's interesting because that talks to what? Terahertz frequencies. I'll just stop there.
Do you mind going more into the Schwarzschild proton and Nassim Haramein's work and the relevance with your
dude, I even tried to reach out to Nassim because once I plugged that thing in and noticed, I mean, the whole idea, look, again, an engineering mind, Jeremiah, you guys know the guys that are like engineers at heart. I mean, so I immediately, when I saw that it goes for a Planck and also as well as the horizon scale, I said, what about everything in between? So why not try the proton? And when I saw that when you put in the mass of the proton, 10 to the minus 27 kilograms, it gives you a reference length on the order of 10 to the minus 54 meters. It doesn't take a freaking quantum physicist to realize that's the Schwarzschild radius, 2 big GM and divided by C squared. 10 to the minus 4. So in other words, it's super force that makes the proton act like a black hole. So this thing will never really decay if left to itself. That's why, they're saying that the decay time is extremely high. And Dave, the physicist, how high is it? It's very high, like 10 to the 34. I remember.
Well, I mean, we think the proton could be stable. There's grand unified theories that predict it to decay, but it seems to be stable.
So it's stable. There you go. It's stable because it's acting as a black hole because of the superforce. Boom. So what if other particles act the same way? Hence vortex dynamics. We're talking about going, from the 10 to the minus 15, at 10 to the minus 54, something. We're not talking about space-time singularities here. We're talking about quantum bounces, hence super bang. The idea that at a super density, we're seeing something that's analogous to the physics of a supernova. How does a supernova work? Once the fuel runs out, gravitation collapse, boom, to what? 10 to the minus 15 meters. So you talk about 1 femtometer. At that particular scale, what operates? The strong nuclear force, right? Okay, well, what happens? Core bounce. Boom, that thing explodes, right? And the density it talks to is like 10 to the 14. 10 to the 4th is huge. 10 to the 14 grams per centimeter cube. Well, I am arguing that at a super density of 10 to the 90 kilograms per centimeter cube, so 10 to the 96 kilograms per meter cube, something like that. My math could be off, but anyway, something like that, huge. You know, we talk about big. At that, because of the 10 to the 44 newtons, so we talk about the super force acting at that 10 to the minus 35 meters at the Planck scale, it undergoes, boom, the Ashtekar bounce. The whole idea of a quantum bounce. That's what, so there are no space-time singularity. It never goes to zero. It goes to the Planck length. I'm just putting it out there. So, it may sound crazy, but what if I'm right? What if the super force creates a super bang and eventually, because of the nature of the cosmos, according to Anthony Peratt, more than 99.